10. Thanks everybody for attending. I'm John, by the way. For those who haven't met before, we've got Mary May and we've got Olivia O'Conner over here.
Hey there.
And we've got Scott, Wanda, Vance, and Simone. So thank you for joining us for this little meeting. There was a couple of other people who booked in. They haven't appeared yet. They may appear, they may not. But normally that's normal. So anyway. So I know Scott, we spoke the other day on the phone, didn't we? Because you
Hmm.
are a new to carving and interested in carving. So Scott will have questions about tools specifically, Mary,
Yeah.
about what's a good beginner kit. Don't be tempted to go and buy the $10 carving set from Tim McConnell or
No, no.
whatever. It's just not good paint openers, stirring devices and stuff. So the brand to buy is File, though it can be a little hard to get the whole set together in one go because of various factors. Um, so today we're going to, Mary, just give us a brief on what we're going to do. I mean, I think you can take it from here
Okay.
and see how this little meeting pans out. So,
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, this is not scripted by any means.
no.
So Olivia and I are going to tell a little bit of our story of how we got into carving and all of that. Then we're going to be going over some of the projects, and we're going to talk about the class that's coming up or the classes that are coming up. And then I am going to be doing a demonstration on sharpening the v-chisel. Now, if the last Zoom meeting I did, I showed how to sharpen the curved gouge. So that's actually on my YouTube channel if you want to review that. Some of it's going to probably be repeat as for the other parts of it because it's going to be similar stories. I actually show how to sharpen the curved gouge. So I'll be doing that towards the end. And anytime if you have questions along the way, just raise your hand or whoops, something's happening in my computer. Sorry. Um, just I don't know how do they do that? Just wait, raise their hand and sort of so I know there's a question
I
or
think just raise your hand is good, you know?
um, should I just start?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
it.
All right. Well, I'm Mary May, and I have been, and I kind of lost track of years, but I think I've been carving almost 35 years, which is kind of a scary thought. I mean, that's kind of an intense number of years. But I actually ended up starting, I kind of fell in love with carving after going to Europe and seeing all of the churches, the cathedrals, the castles, and just absolutely falling in love with that gorgeous, intricate detail carving, that historical carving. And the interesting thing is at the time I didn't even think it was being taught anymore and certainly didn't think it was being done anymore. So I thought, well, that was just one of those things that was way back then and really didn't exist anymore. And uh, when I actually tried to inquire about carving and carving classes when I got home, I was living in Minneapolis at the time. It was all really more whittling. And using knives and it was beautiful stuff, but it really wasn't that decorative kind of carving that I really wanted to focus on. And so I ended up actually going in the yellow pages, that big, thick, heavy book that used to be around and is now replaced by Google. I looked in the yellow pages under wood carving and found Konstantinos Papadakis, artistic wood carving studio. So I thought, ooh, that sounds like what I'm trying to find. And so I called him, and he, in this very broken Greek accent, said, come on over, I'll teach you how to carve. And I knew, like, from the moment I walked into that workshop that was something that I wanted to do. The smell of the place, the dust everywhere, the carvings on the walls, the carvings on all the benches, and they're beautiful ornate carvings. Now Konstantinos learned when he was like 12 years old quit school, became an apprentice, then did the whole journeyman thing and back in the started in the 1940s. Sadly, he just passed away this March. But I studied with him for 3 years. And so, if you've ever been inside a Greek Orthodox or a Russian Orthodox church, a lot of times the insides of these churches are completely carved, like the screen across the front, and it's all very, very intricately carved with a lot of vines and leaves. And anyway, that was what he started me with, that very traditional European style carving, using the long handled gouges. Okay. And I think I probably within about 5 minutes of walking into his workshop, I thought, wow, if I could do this for the rest of my life, I would. And since then, that's pretty much what I've been doing. So it has been very it's been very good for that. So I studied with him for 3 years, and then just kind of ventured on my own and trying to get as many commissions as I could. It was a little hard to start because it's such a really obscure career that just is a little hard to find customers. So I just did a lot of knocking on doors for furniture makers, architects, go into some of these churches, and if they need repairs, something like that. Really just trying to focus on that, that specific style of the decorative carving. And so let's see, about 13 years ago, I started an online video school. It was in that time in my career where I didn't get a lot of commissions and I was getting hungry and I still wanted to carve. And I still wanted to have this as a career. So it ended up being really, basically right now, my career is pretty much a third of the time I'm doing the videos and the online school. Then I'm doing about a third commission, and then the other third is traveling and teaching, like what I'm going to be doing in Australia. There was one year where I actually added another third, and I wrote a book. And if you add that up,
there's the book. I've
It
got
is
a
a
copy.
great book. I have one.
Yeah.
yeah, so if you add up 4 thirds, that was like a little bit over the top year. So yeah. So anyway, I will shut up, and I don't think I'm sure other ramblings are gonna show up through the Zoom, but Olivia, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Thanks, Mary. Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. My carving journey is a little different. It started with a love of woodwork. So I think like all people who love woodwork, you think, oh, I'm going to be a furniture maker. So off I went and I studied one whole year of furniture design and construction at RMIT, but I ended up leaving there early. I moved from regional Victoria to Sydney, where I studied prop making and scenic art for theatre and film at NIDA. And in my final year there, I was assigned to make a rocking horse as my masterwork. And it was my first introduction to what I shall call carving, although the majority of that carving was done with a draw knife. But I absolutely loved it so much. Graduated, went off and worked a year and a half in theatre and film. It wasn't for me. And then I think like many people, you go, I have an arts degree. And I'm not enjoying the path it set me up on. What do I do next? So I moved back to Victoria and I set up my business making and restoring rocking horses. So for a number of years, the only thing I could actually carve was a rocking horse. And I'd bought a few tools from Carbatech and was sort of just mucking around. And through that, trying to expand my own carving, found Mary's videos on YouTube. And then I thought, this is brilliant, falling more and more in love with it. I tried to find someone like within Victoria that I could go and actually learn physically from. And I just got nowhere. There was just nobody offering like traditional style carving lessons, which is really disheartening. And then on the flip side, I was really lucky. I got a fellowship and I went to America and I spent time with Mary in her workshop. Um, and when was that, Mary? Back in like maybe 2017, 2018?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Um, just had the absolute best time. Came back home to Australia and have not stopped carving since then and just absolutely love it. And here I am.
Nice story, Olivia. If you guys aren't familiar with Olivia's rocking horses, then check them out. If you go to her Insta, they're brilliant. Yeah, and
Thanks, John.
painted work and stuff. Yeah, very good.
Okay, should we talk about the classes coming up? I can show you some of the things that we're going to be working on. I'm going to change my camera angle and just see if I can show you some close-ups. I'm hoping this is going to work. All right, so yeah, both of the classes are going to be 5-day classes, but there is the option of basically joining it for a shorter amount of days. And so let's see. Well, I'm not even sure if I showed this last time, but this is basically if you're familiar with my online videos, this is actually a donut. I know it seems really, really simple, but this is actually one of the best beginning lessons to go to do. Now, it can be a donut, or it can be a bagel, or it can be if you're gluten-free, I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe it's a tire. I don't know, like but
A bad donut.
But it really, this is the thing that my teacher actually started me out with. Okay, this is the first thing he started me out with. And at the time, I'm like, oh man, that just looks so boring. But I still, to this day, go back to the donut and really working through grain direction of which direction best to go. And what's interesting is after the donut, then basically everything else is like a really misshapen donut. Because it's really is a wonderful place to start, because everything else relates to this. So the first main project is actually going to be a rose. All right, this is actually technically, if you've seen my videos, this is actually a camellia, but it's kind of the same thing, rose with overlapping petals. And it really is a good beginner lesson. I know it looks really, really complicated, a lot of layering and a lot of things happening. But the thing is, we're going to go over it just by step process. And we're also going to learn how to draw this. So if you learn how to draw something like this, sometimes it helps understand all the layering process. And so what I do is I basically go through, like we'll show you a step, and then you go and you do that step, and then you come back and then do that step. So it's a very, very methodical, but step-by-step process. I don't basically, it's like, okay, here's the rose, go for it, have at it. It's very guided. So that's a really fun starting one because it looks really, really intense, and it is. There's a lot to it. But if you do that step-by-step process, it really, you can achieve it very, very easily. And so that is actually the first one. And then we've got the shell. All right. And I believe, John, we're going to be cutting this out. We're going to try to cut this out. So this particular one, the background was lowered down. All right, but we won't have to do that. It'll actually be cut out, which will allow us to have a little thicker shell to carve. And so this one we're dealing with, again, some grain direction issues, but also symmetry. All right, so whereas the flower was, you know, a little part of the petal breaks off. Oh, well, that's the way the flower is supposed to be, you know. We can do a redesign adjustment. But this is a little bit more precise in the details and the rounding and everything like that. All right, so then another one is going to be
And that piece, one thing, Mary, that piece is going to be carved in black walnut. So
that one is okay. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's beautiful. And you know, I like to use that example as kind of the real world carving. Sometimes basswood. Oh no, we're going to be using jelly tongue, right?
gelatin, yeah.
Jelly tongue. It's, you know, it's soft, it's friendly. um, but you know, if you're going to actually be doing carving furniture or things like that, you really do want to get the experience of using a hardwood, you know, walnut or mahogany or something that is really something you would probably actually include in the in a piece of furniture. So I like to always include at least one of the projects with that. This is just 2 oak leaves with some acorns. And this is just a shallow relief carving of some overlapping. And that really is what this is about, is just a very kind of the illusion of depth in very shallow relief. And just by using overlapping and shaping of the leaves. And let's see, finally, I'm going to be doing this process, these two. Okay, these are 2 lessons, and they're exactly the same design, but one is going to be in very shallow relief carved into a board, and then one is going to be a deeper relief, which is going to be cut out like this. And I love this project because there's you learn so much. The exact same design, but this is more kind of tricking the eye. I mean, if you look sideways at it, it's really shallow. All right, but looking straight on, it looks really the same as that. You can see the same design, but it really is more tricking the eye. And then this one, we're going to be really doing a little bit more 3-dimensional, exactly the same design. So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot. We're going to go through a lot of things, and it's going to, each of the projects is going to just sort of build on each other, the skills, and you know, we're not going to leave you to your own. We're going to be there. Olivia is going to be there, and we're going to guide you through step by step by step.
And I will say, like, because I've done several of these same projects with Mary when I was beginning, they, I would say, like, sort of deceptively, there's an amount of skill in there that when you first look at it, you might not see. And from learning how to sort of step back and decide on your process before you start carving, I think that's a really, really valuable skill instead of just literally like hammering away. And then suddenly you haven't thought the process through properly and you're then stuck, something's broken. And so these projects really are like beautifully designed as foundational skills that you can sort of expand into basically anything else you do want to carve.
You know, one of the first things that I did a lot of mistakes on when I was carving, I would like finish one little area completely, and then I would go onto the next little corner, and then I go onto the other side. And by the time I got around back to the original, I'd realized that I have to do this completely over again because you learn a lot going around. And so a lot of it, like what Olivia was saying, is there's a process, there's a thinking through process. And there are certain things you want to do first, certain things you want to do second, so that you think through the process so that doesn't necessarily interfere with that part. And so you want to do that first. So you're removing the wood, so it makes that next part easier. And, you know, a lot of that ends up being kind of just more from having the carving tool in your hand and having done a lot of projects. And that's where you go, note to self, I won't do that one again. And sometimes that's the best way to learn.
I have a lot of notes to self.
Yeah, I've got
Story
these
of my
little
life.
sticky notes all over the back of my head.
So, Mary, in that, say over the 5 days, we were saying that that would be like achievable to finish all five projects.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And
You
eh,
probably need your Wheaties every morning though. So
I'm sorry.
you need your Wheaties every morning, like your Wheat Bix to
Oh yeah. Yeah.
well, you can't eat that though because you don't eat grains. Oh, anyway. Okay. So yeah, five projects over 5 days is the plan. So it's a good learning experience. Yeah.
Hmm.
Comprehensive. Yeah.
Just
Oh,
a
yeah.
question. Because of work commitments, I can only come for two. I'm trying to get three, but I think it's going to be two.
Okay.
So what would that look like coming for the first couple of days in
Well,
terms of those projects?
yeah, then basically for the first two, well, we'd go the quick lesson, basically that donut is a very quick one, or we get through that very, very quickly. And timing always is, we sort of try to figure
Hmm.
out classes, but definitely the rows. And then we probably would be going into the second project. And honestly, I can't remember, did we say the second one was going to be this one or the shell? I was trying to figure the order. It doesn't really matter one way or the other, but
From memory, it was the shell
the shell was
was
second,
no, the shell was third from
third.
memory.
Okay, okay,
But that can be swapped around, I guess. So
yeah. But so if
Hmm.
that's the order we decided, I just can't remember. I mean, honestly, that's the reason I can't remember is because either one would be a good one for a second project. Sort of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but
Your pick, Scott.
what's that?
I said Scott's pick.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think also, we're opening up this class to also more experienced carvers if they're wanting to work on something more advanced, if they're wanting to work on their own projects, and just sort of Olivia and I can kind of help you through the challenges. So we are opening it up to that. If you've had carving experience before, just communicate with us and we can sort of provide different assistance. So I think it's going to be a small enough class so we can do that a little easier.
Yeah. Any other questions about the
Yeah, I have a
carving
question,
plants?
John. Mary, if you could you hold up the donut again
Yes.
and indicate which way the grain is actually running? I couldn't quite pick it up on my camera.
All right. So green is going horizontal. All right. So we're talking about rounding over the outside surface, right? So
Yeah,
basically you start at the top and you round it in this direction and round it in this direction, because if you carve in this direction, you actually are going to snag and catch them.
sure.
All right. So, I mean, this is obviously it's circular, so it's much easier to kind of figure out which ways are going. And then just to make it even more challenging, carving the inside of the donut is reversed. And that's where
Right. Yes,
usually
yes.
that's the part where in class you go, you know what? We just have to dive in and you'll feel it.
Sure, sure.
After
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that now. That's cool. I have
yeah,
another question, I guess, to Mary, Olivia, and John. I'm new to carving, but I'm a carpenter of about 30 years, so I guess it's a little bit parallel, and I'm looking forward to learning carving. But can you tell me what species of woods I might like to practice with, that are local and easily available to me in Victoria?
when you say local vents, do you mean Australian or do you mean stuff you can buy within Melbourne?
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically stuff I can get my hands on to start with.
Yeah, so I always start my beginners off on jelly tongue
Hmm.
because it is fairly forgiving and you learn a lot about the grain direction without the added complexity of a hardwood. Um,
Sure.
and then a gorgeous step up from that you're probably familiar with is Fijian mahogany,
Right.
and that's also
Where do
quite
you
easy.
source? Where's could you tell me where I can go? I mean, these are like a specialty timber, like a. Where do you go
Yes.
to source them in Melbourne?
Do you know Matthews Timber in Knox?
Right, Matthews. Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yep.
I either buy my timber from them, or for a lot of my sculptural carving work, there's a local guy who has his own portable sawmill. Because
Right.
like
Okay.
where I live. But I carve a lot of Australian timbers don't necessarily beautifully lend towards this style of wood carving
Okay.
Because they're
because
hard, yeah.
they're so hard.
Mm.
They're
Right.
so
Right.
hard. The grain likes to do this a lot. Um, but I love carving blackwood. Um,
Sure.
so I use like a lot of local blackwood and like probably the nicest Australian carving timber is Huon pine.
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen a few of those. Yeah. Cool. All right. That's
Yeah,
great.
some
I'll pay.
cypress, if you don't want to go all the way to Knox, like some cypress can be really nice too.
Yeah, I've had a play with some cypress because I get a bit of cypress offcuts in my construction business. So um, I've had a little play with that, and that's fun.
Yeah, it gets a bad rap, and I think it's undeserved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Vance, in the group, in the Melbourne group, there's a guy joining the class called Wayne Maven,
Mhm.
and he actually is a staircase builder. So he builds
Oh,
stairs.
cool.
And he does a lot of quite decorative handrails. I was looking at a piece he's working on this morning, which is like he's built this massive mold and he does cold laminations of glued laminations around it and builds
Wow.
up a profile. And then he carves into that. So, touching on what you were saying earlier, Mary, about, oh, there's not a massive call for traditional carving. But in some applications into carpentry and stuff, I think it's a really brilliant way to differentiate your product from other makers. And that's what Wayne
Yeah.
Mark's going to do. So it could be really interesting for you. And it doesn't need to be little, you don't need to make little tiny things like going forward. You can make, larger objects. So, or
Sure.
use it as a
I
decorative
have
detail.
a little idea, and I can see when I'm looking at Mary in her in the camera, the door behind her. We make some doors, and we had the idea of carving into the horizontal ledger within the door and some of the projects that we're working on, so as to make this unique um, one of a kind point of interest that is part of our overall project,
Yeah.
and might be something that's relatable to the clients or the house or something like that. So yeah, we've got some ideas, and we look forward to working on them.
I love it. Did I, Vance, because you're on the last Zoom, did I tell you the story about Peter Fallonsby and all of his doors?
No.
So Peter Fallonsby is an American wood carver, and he does sort of really 16th century repetitive pattern work.
Okay.
And he hosted a class in Australia a number of years ago, and I went along as a student. And he told a story that he was unwell, an ambulance had been called, but he had also carved every single door in his house, every single kitchen cupboard. And the paramedics walked in and they weren't tending to him because they were so busy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're fine. We know what's wrong with you. Don't worry. We want to look at we want to walk around your house and admire everything that's carved. He apparently doesn't have a single surface that isn't
Wow,
carved.
that's awesome.
Well,
Be
that's
careful.
very common to actually have your own carvings in your house. That doesn't happen very often.
I know, it is quite remarkable, isn't it?
I did want to mention, so I showed you this one. I can I'm trying to get the light showing. So something like this, that would actually be a really good design for what you're talking about, because you actually carve down into the surface of the wood. You don't have to take the whole surface down, but you actually angle down, and then so whatever design is really the prep work and actually getting down to the design is not that big of an effort.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds terrific. I can't wait to try that and to learn those fundamentals so that we can just put the time in and see how we go.
We'll just welcome Kent Cooper to the chat, because Kent, how are you?
I am well, thanks, John.
Mary, Olivia,
Mary,
Kent's people joining us for the workshops.
yes, I am.
Back on that item for your doors, Vance, I imagine too, Mary, you could do that as a relief and then glue it on.
Yeah, definitely. You can do that as
Mhm.
basically what they call an applique, where you cut it out
Yeah.
and then
Cool.
put it on. Yeah. But you know, the interesting thing is the whole class, the skills that you get from the class it can be applied towards whatever. It can be applied towards if you're wanting to do sculptural pieces, if you're wanting to do relief carvings, wanted to detail furniture. But it really ends up being more learning how to control the tools, learning how the grain works, and then you can go wherever you want with it. So yeah, the lessons are just all about kind of thinking through the process, controlling the tools, and of course, safety. We go over that a lot, all right, by basically don't point the tool towards yourself at all. I've seen some scary professional carvers who are constantly carving like that. Which just,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think professionals can sometimes be the worst.
yes.
I've seen horrendous injuries on people doing the wrong thing. So, Ken, just because you
Yes.
came a little later, do you have any questions about the classes or the project? Because we've sort of to date covered the 5 projects that we're covering. Do you have any questions about those projects or anything you want to add to it?
No, I'm looking forward to it, actually. My introduction to carving was from a professional carver here in Adelaide who's since retired, a guy called Ken Veer. And he was the last carving apprentice of Adelaide, of South Australia.
Wow.
And he worked for a kitchen company that happened to be there just as modern modular kitchens came in and all the carving stuff was disappearing. So he kind of really didn't, he finished his apprenticeship and really didn't have a job. And so his introduction was, he gave us a series of little projects, and he said, these are the basic moves of carving. And once you've done these, you've done it all. And then go ahead and carve something. And that's what we did. And he used to run classes at a place where you could go, and he would offer advice. And he had an array of tools, of course, and stuff like that, and workbenches. And he offered advice on design or technique if you got stuck, but mostly it was like what we would call a men's shed or a community venue where you rock up and someone is there that can guide and or help, but you don't actually like people would come in saying they want to learn to carve, and he said, I cannot give you a certificate. So he wasn't a teacher.
What
for
was his
yourself.
name again, Ken? Because I'm just going to Google him.
Yeah.
Ken Veer, Kenvear.
And it's sad because there are very few really the master carvers who have gone through that whole European apprenticeship, that sort of that same process. It's just not possible now. And the majority of the people who did go through that, they're in their 80s and 90s. And I'm hoping that type of thing will come back. I'd love to just open up my workshop and just have people come for like months at a time. There you go, Olivia. Come back to America.
Love that. Maybe I'll finally get a certificate.
I'll print you one.
I can't give a certificate either.
Thanks, John.
And I'll write a certificate. How's that? I'll put it on my computer and I'll print it out and I'll sign it. We make our own certificates.
Interesting. Okay.
So Mary and Olivia, my background is a high school woodwork teacher. Taught for a number of years and then moved into the technology side of education, and I've recently come back to woodwork teaching and just loving being back in the workshop with high school students. But the way that I describe myself is I'm really good at straight lines. And so carving is something that I haven't done, and it's going to be outside my comfort zone, but I'm really interested to learn. And so I've got plenty of tools, but none of them are carving tools. And so, as John said at the beginning, I was just having a look at the list of tools that if you can bring along, and I've got some budget for that. But I don't know where to start, and the numbers and all of that just don't make sense to me. Is there a short version of helping me understand that?
I can go over that, yeah. Or Olivia, basically, it's once we sort of go through all this, unless you want to do that now. Should I go over
No,
that?
I'm happy to wait till the end. That's fine.
It is very simple once it's explained to you.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking at a bunch of numbers and slashes before that point, I understand here, like, what?
Yeah.
What is going
Yeah.
on?
And even with the books, it's like still.
But, I mean, if you want to, I can do that now. I'll just quickly go over this.
Simone and Wanda, are you happy to look at this, the design, the chisel coating system?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I do understand the chisel coating system, but it does take a bit to understand it. But once, as Olivia said, once you get the hang of what's happening, it's a really good system.
Yeah.
It's
very understandable once it begins
This
to.
is the file system as well. Yeah, just note that.
But it's also crazy that Carbotech don't have an explanation for it on their website.
And they don't exist in Adelaide anymore.
I heard that only recently, isn't it?
Yep, Adelaide and Perth are dropping out end of next month.
And Hobart went as well. All three.
All three.
Yeah.
Yes,
They're saying they're going to keep their
Simone,
online presence, but I mean the thing with it is, I mean, I'm an old guy, and I'm assuming that most people want to see what they're looking at, especially if you don't know anything about it. It's nice to get a feel.
I agree. I've been carving for a while. I'm not actually doing Mary's workshop, unfortunately. But I've done a little bit of stuff with Olivia on YouTube with Carbotech, which was very unfortunate. It didn't go for very long.
I agree.
Yeah, I enjoyed every single one of them. So I was sorry when it didn't continue. I've been carving for a while, and now I understand a bit more about the file numbering system. Or it's not just a file system. There are two systems, and File uses one of them. It's really easy to be able to buy online. But when I first started carving, I just, even knowing what the profiles and everything were and what the system meant, it was quite difficult to try and work out what I wanted. And I ended up with a really basic carving set. And then as I did more carving, not that I'm, a fantastic carver, I've just been doing it for a while, but only a little bit at a time. Every project that I do, another tool comes to mind, and I think, oh, if I had that, this would be so much easier. And I didn't, there were things that I just didn't know until I was actually carving. And there is a set of there is a document with the file profiles system, or the file numbering system, that was in one of Carbotech's really old catalogues. And they don't put the catalogues out anymore. And I've kept the ones that I got originally. I've only been carving for probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years maybe, as a hobby. But I originally, when I started, they used to put out a catalogue, and there is they used to have a full page in the catalogue that showed you the profiles and explained those widths and the profiles and everything. So even though I'm not coming to the workshop, I could probably send Olivia a copy of that, I could scan it, and then you guys can share it. And
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Simone.
Olivia.
Then I can share that out.
Yeah, because I just found it really useful when I first started carving, because you could actually look at it and say, oh, look, that's what the end of the chisel is going to look like, and it's to scale as well. So for instance, the 510 is actually 10 millimeters wide, and it shows you the curve of the 5. And I just found that really helpful. So because everything is going online now, it makes it a lot easier for people who are starting. So I'll see if I can organise that.
Thanks, Simone. That'd be
You're
great.
welcome.
Yeah.
Another source is one of Chris Pye's books, when he talks about one of his first 2 books, when he talks about tools and things like that. There's a page in there which explains it all and has the profiles.
Yeah, it's well, just to sort of demystify the whole process. I'll do a really quick drawing of how the numbers work, and we're going to be sticking with, let's say, the Swiss made or file, just because I think that sounds like that's what is the most available to you there.
Yep.
And this is the European system, but basically, this will be upside down, but okay. A number 1 is basically a flat chisel, okay? Same thing as a bench chisel, but it is a carving chisel, which actually works better as a carving chisel. It's a little lighter, a little thinner. So there is actually a number 1 flat chisel. And then we have number 2, which is very slightly curved, just curved enough so the corners don't catch. This one is really good for doing backgrounding. If you want to level the background flat, rather than using a flat chisel, which the corners could dig. But number 2 is really good for doing that backgrounding, like a larger one, like a 18 or 20 millimeter wide, where you basically you can just almost like plane the surface of it. So we're talking about there's 2 numbers on the file. Okay, so let me just show you. So we've got, this one is a 3F/14. The first number represents the curve, and now F stands for fishtail. If you can see that, it's like fanned out. All right, and then the second number represents the width in millimeters, a straight line from corner to corner. Okay, so let me just carry on. So number 3, a little bit more probably the one I use the most, I would say, is the number 3. And then we go number 4. So we're talking about just that first number. All right, and then number 5 keeps getting more curved, and we go all the way to a number 10, which is basically a half round. Okay, and then beyond that, we've got number 11, which is called a veiner, straight edge, but coming with a very large scoop and tall walls. Okay, the larger ones are also called a fluter. Okay, so carving flutes, really helpful for that. Small one, you actually carve veins and leaves, typically a little tiny one. Then we go to number 12, which is actually a v-chisel. And number 12 is really my preferred because it represents a 60-degree angle v-chisel. All right, and it really is my favorite. Okay, and then we go, I don't even know which ones, because it goes number 13, 14, I think all the way to, and Olivia, you may be able to answer this, all the way to number 17 maybe. But those
In
are
Australia, you can't buy the full set, so I've never seen a 13 or a 14.
Yeah, well, and those are basically just different angle v-chisel, like a 90-degree angle, and then there's one that's really tight angle, but I stick with the 60-degree.
I personally like the 12s and the 15s.
Yeah, yep. And so 15 is what, 45-degree angle?
Yep.
Yeah, so 15 is probably that one, 45-degree. Very tight one, creates really nice sharp corners. So basically, first number represents the sweep or curvature, and then the second number, straight line from there to there, is the width in millimeters. All right, and so just want to go over real quick set. Actually, you know, before I do that, I want to show you something. So I'm sure if you have shopped for tools, basically what you can see is sometimes you see this chart, all right, which is talking about, and let's say I'm just estimating, that's probably a number 5, okay? All of these sweeps are number 5s. Okay, so you can see that the smaller ones actually are a tighter curve than the larger ones, all number 5. And the way that they do that is they determine it is basically you have a series of concentric circles. Oh, let's see if I can actually do this without getting too crazy. All right, so basically they take a straight line, everything within that is that number 5. Okay, and that's how they determine the sweep. Now let's just say like from here to there would be, let's say, a number 3 inside that. So when you see this, that's pretty much where it came from. Okay, so hopefully that will kind of help explain, because what you do, you can end up seeing this big page with a lot of those little curves. And you know, at that point, you just have to kind of figure out which ones make sense. I would really caution you about purchasing a pre-existing set of tools. A lot of times they're kind of cheap, or, you know, they're cheaper than normal if you buy them individually, but usually I'm convinced of it. They'll throw in 2 or 3 that just are never going to be used. And you might as well then get tools that you really are going to use. So just be cautious with that. I see a lot of sets out there, and you know, it's just sometimes I'm convinced if oh, well, that's not selling, it's sort of the set. I'll go over real quickly the basically a starter set. Okay, so good starter set is basically a 6 or 8 millimeter v-chisel. Okay, 6 v-chisel, and again, that is a number 12, and that would be 6 millimeter. Okay, makes sense. So number 12 is what we were talking about with that, the v-chisel.
And that's the 60 degrees.
60 degrees, yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you go number 3, 6 millimeter, a nice almost flat or a flatter one, a small one. And then I go number 3, 14. Again, I use these two probably the most. And then we go up 5, 6, number 5, 14, number 7, 6, and number 7, 14. Just to kind of keep it simple, we've got 3s, 5s, and 7s, odd numbers, and then the 6 millimeter and 14 millimeter of each of those. So the actual set that I recommend has everything here except for that, which you know, you can kind of get away with that. I just don't like overloading people too much with expensive tools, so you can actually get a lot done with these. And if you're going to go beyond this, then you would probably fill in maybe a 10 millimeter of these, a 10 millimeter of those curves. It's interesting because you can really get away with just using odd numbers. And surprisingly, the availability of number 4s and number 6s are not really very available. Then if you're wanting to get more, like you maybe want to include a number 8 or a number 9 larger one, maybe a you know, 16 millimeter or something like that, and that would be really just for hogging out a lot of wood. So you know, that with this basic set, this is really for doing kind of detail relief carving, similar, you know, what we're going to be working on. But this one, if you're just wanting, Olivia probably has a couple of these massive ones.
I do have a couple of 30 mils wide.
Yeah, basically a shovel.
Yeah,
Mary,
truly.
Yeah.
I will
just
say
ask,
though,
what
I
was-
also, sorry, John, what was
sorry,
that?
Olivia, go.
No, I was just going to say, because when I have people come on my classes, they often get very excited and they've looked up, you know, the tool roll that comes with 20 gouges in it. And I say, if you can, and I help them narrow it down to like 4 or 5 tools. And I also believe you will be a better carver if you learn how to get more out of your tools rather than starting off with like an enormous array. And yeah, I don't quite know how to explain it. I do think you're better if you can be more versatile with each tool. And then as you progress and practice, you will realize actually, if I had like an 8/9, that would make my life so much easier. And then when you start to like purchase extra tools, you'll be very strategic about what you will use and what will come from it. And I find it funny that you're saying you use your number threes, Mary, because my favorite is a 3F20.
Yeah. Because you can, I'm sure we'll show you this process, but you can flip it back or forward and use it completely two different ways.
Oh my God.
It's yeah, it's interesting. What you're talking about with a minimal amount of tools, because the first 3 years that I carved, I probably had about 6 tools. And it's true, you basically take those tools and you kind of figure out how to do things that they probably weren't meant to do. Not in a dangerous sort of way, but that you get to learn how to finesse them and make a relatively flat gouge act as if it is a little bit more curved than it actually is. By doing a certain twist movement, or so yeah, you're right. And I actually had a friend who started out carving and he bought every single tool number, which his whole shop was filled with them. I'm like, man, you got way too much money than you know what to do with.
I was going to say a secret millionaire, hey?
Actually, I don't know how many thousands of dollars.
Not a secret.
What was interesting, because he was a beginner carver and he's always wanted to do this, so he retired and he got all these, and it was almost like he was panicking, like there's the perfect tool up there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. It's like, I don't know, just grab that one, make it work. So it was almost like overwhelming to have to figure out, and I wanted to get that perfect tool, but yeah, so not necessary.
So to run through those numbers, so that was a 6mm number 12, yeah, 6mm number 3, 14mm number 3, 14mm number 5, yeah,
Yeah, see that.
14mm number 7, and then if you're feeling wealthy, 16mm number 8 or 9. Is that right? Yeah.
And then if you just wanted to sort of add to this, one thing I don't have with this one is a really small one. So getting really like a 2 or 3 millimeter, maybe number 3 or something like that, which will get you into these tiny areas that nothing else will get into. Okay, so that's just if you want to expand and get past that beginner.
Okay.
And Mary, fishtail versus straight.
When I first started, I had all straight ones, right? And then I bought my first fishtail and I never looked back. At this point, when I gather up all of my favorite tools, they all end up being fishtails. And they're definitely preferred, because basically they, right here. So if you look, I don't know if you can see that, but basically they're splayed out and they work sort of like a skew chisel. All right, so you can actually get into corners really nicely, that you wouldn't be able to if it was straight. And they're, a lot of people think they might be more delicate, but they're really not. They're as strong as anything else. And one of the arguments, I think some people sort of argue against the fishtails as well, they have a shorter lifespan. If you really grind them a lot and shrink them down a lot, I suppose, but even with that, then you just have a smaller, really good tool. So I wouldn't not buy a fishtail because of that. But no, if you have an option to get fishtails, I would definitely get that. They might be a little bit more expensive, but they're my go-to tool all the time.
That was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Sorry.
And I found in Adelaide they weren't as readily available through
They're not as
Carver Tech.
readily available in Australia.
No.
Yep. They're much easier to buy in America, but Carbotech does have a range of the feel gouges in fishtails as well.
They did.
Yeah, they do. Just again, it's probably like an online thing. But we just don't have the full availability.
No.
There is an American website. I think I referred you to them, Kent. Mary, what's the name of that business in the US that has the Mary May set?
Oh, that's they're actually out of Canada.
Canada, sorry. Yeah.
Chipping Away. Yeah, chippingaway.com. I don't
Yes.
know how they deal with shipping. That might end up being the issue, but I know they ship to America. So you may want to check with that.
I contacted them a while ago, and they're very happy to collaborate. So I think that if you're prepared to pay for air freight, you can get it. And it's chisels. It's not like it's a house or something. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that
And
expensive.
it's not like it's a priority thing either, normally.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've had the same thing with a mob called Treeline. I've bought a few things from them, and their freight is horrendous because they only do priority post in the States. So I emailed him and I said, look, I was going to do this order, but your freight's just too much. I live in Australia. I don't care how long it takes to get here because it's going to take a while anyway. And the guy said, well, just email me and we'll do a different freight rate.
Yeah.
I've got a tool company, in the UK that I had heard about, in the last few years through friends that do carving. I do a lot of hand tool work as well as carving. Hand planes and scrapers and rasps and all that sort of stuff. And so when I went overseas last year, we were going back to the UK to catch up with some friends we hadn't seen for over 20 years. We used to live there for a little while. And fortunately, this place, I think it's called Classic Tools.
Yeah, Classic Hand Tools.
Classic Hand Tools, that's it, in Ipswich. And we used to live in Norwich, which is in the county next door. And so while we were over there, I went to Classic Hand Tools. My husband went and did a couple of hours Tai Chi, and I spent a couple of hours in an Aladdin's cave. And it's an amazing, absolutely amazing place. And they have got drawers and drawers and drawers full of feel chisels of all different profiles and sizes, fishtails and straight chisels, bent chisels. I just could not believe how many file chisels they had in stock on hand. And I have actually bought a few things from them. I did have my little my budget when I went for my play for the couple of hours looking through this beautiful shop, and came away with some really nice hand tools. But I would expect that you would be able to buy almost any file chisel that you were after from Classic Hand Tools in the UK. They just had such a large amount in stock on hand, and the freight from the UK isn't as expensive as it is from the States. So Classic Hand Tools in Ipswich.
Thank you.
What was the name of the other place again from Canada, Mary?
Chippingaway.com.
Chipping Away.
And I'm guessing you'd probably be able to have them sent. I just don't know the timing. If you're trying to.
If it was air freight, it wouldn't be too bad. So, I mean, this is 3 weeks. So,
no matter what acknowledgement, it's like saying, it's like what's happening on a much smaller scale with the yellow algal blue.
Who's talking now?
I think.
That's someone. That's my wife talking on the phone. I'll go outside.
Oh, okay, right. Sorry.
That's all right. I'll go outside.
John.
It's a bit chillier out there.
Yes, Vince.
We're running like about 9 degrees here at present.
A pre-existing commitment, but I thank you all for today, and I'm really looking forward to the course.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Vance.
There we go.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Bit fresher.
Yeah, see you soon. Cheers.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nick. Bye.
Care. Are there any other questions? Or I can go through the v-chisel sharpening if there aren't any.
I actually followed. That was one of my issues a long time ago, and then I actually caught you online
Okay.
in your basic, 8-lesson thing, where you let us have a quick glimpse at carving and basics, and you did the v-chisel in that, and I was much appreciative because I'd followed a couple of others and they got almost to the crux of it and then said, spend money.
Buy a new one.
Which I didn't find very exciting. So yeah, that's been a lifesaver for me. But yes, I'd love to go see it more. You can never you can never watch it too much to learn.
It definitely is probably one of the most challenging ones, wouldn't you say, Olivia?
Yes.
I was mentioning is those other weird angle v-chisels. If you get a really small one, like you use 15, number 15s, the actual stone that you put inside can be real challenging to fit into those as they get different angles. The 60 degree is pretty common to be able to find a stone to use. But all right, well, let's see.
Slipstones have been very few and far between here in Adelaide.
Do you know what? I've got some. I'm wondering if I should bring some. And just if it's hard to find.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. Right. So I guess, can you see that okay? Yeah. Okay. So I've got a large v-chisel here. This is an 8 millimeter and it's a little easier to see. And so I use the technique of using this the marker. All right, this is just a Sharpie. All right, and I'm just going to do one side to show how to do this, but it really is helpful. I use this with a curved gouge. Certainly when you're beginning, it's a good thing to do just to make sure it's positioned correctly. Now, I'm positioning it incorrectly right there, the stone. Now, what I'm using here is a 1200 grit diamond stone. All right, and I've got 1200, and then the final one I use is an 8000. So whatever stones that you have, if you've got Arkansas stones or if you've got water stones, basically try to get the equivalent to that. One's going to remove the metal, and then the final one.
What's going on? I've dropped out.
The final one is going to be doing sort of the final honing and polishing. So they all work. I just started using diamond stones probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm not turning back. They say diamonds are a girl's best friends. Okay. So I just use water. You can use Windex for the diamond stones. And so, okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of rock the tool, like right there. Rock the tool until you can kind of feel the flat, because you really want to be able to hit the stone from the heel all the way to the tip. One thing to keep in mind, Swiss made, it's the other side, it's the one I marked. Keep in mind that when you first buy tools, quite often there's a small secondary bevel right at the end. Okay, so I'm pretty sure the file company, Swiss made, actually does a quick angle, and they probably sharpen them with a machine, and they do a quick angle just to make sure that the tool is really sharp. But what it does is it creates a secondary bevel. So first time you sharpen these tools, basically there's going to be this little black area that doesn't hit the stone right along the edge. So you have to remove the whole thing down past that.
Mary, can I ask a question just before you start, since you brought up the secondary bevel. Do you put secondary bevels on your chisels, or do you use them without secondary bevels?
I generally don't. Are you talking about inside? Like you actually create like an inside bevel? Or
Yeah, the outside.
Okay.
You get
Generally, no. And the reason basically is, so if you imagine you've got basically straight and then a little bit of a secondary bevel right at the end. What it does is it actually causes you to do more scooping motion than a planing motion. So it's a little easier to control them. Now, if you're just trying to get a sharp tool and, hogging out a bunch of wood, that doesn't matter. But if you're trying to do really kind of finessed cuts, it does make it a little bit easier if you don't have that secondary bevel. But as I said, if you just need a sharp tool, then that shouldn't be that much of an issue. I mean, the brand new tools, they have that secondary bevel. You can still use the tools. It's just ideal if you don't have that, or just the controlled cuts.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of people talk about pros and cons of having a secondary bevel, and I was just curious to see what your thoughts were. I don't tend to use a secondary bevel, but it's probably because I'm lazy, so I don't put the secondary bevel on.
There's been like international wars over like, do you put an inside bevel on? Do you put an outside bevel on? It's like, you know what? Do whatever works. So
okay, thanks.
Okay, okay, so just want to do this now. However you sharpen a flat chisel. So if you've sharpened flat chisels before, however you do that, but I tend to go push back and forth, right? And just keep from rocking it. But then look back at it, you can kind of see it's hitting more towards the heel. All right, can you see that? All right, so I'm going to lift it up just a little bit because it's not quite getting where I want to. All right, so just lift it up a little bit more.
This is very zen, this, isn't it? Right.
Yes, you got to get the music going. Okay, that looks pretty good. So all the marker is gone. All right, and so I do that for, I would say on these, using a 1200, I'd say maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much of damage, like if there's actually nicks in the edge of your tool, then you're going to probably have to take more away. But you basically do this until you get a little wire edge that is folded over on the inside of the tool, right? Then you turn around and do the other side. What's tricky about this is it's very easy to put a little bit too much pressure one side or the other because you're putting downward pressure on kind of a weird angle. And it's easy to push one side or the other. And then what that does is it re-angles the blade. Okay, so just be careful with that. So basically flat chisel, flat chisel. All right, so until you get the wire edge folded along the inside. Now I want to get another, hold on, let me do another drawing here. I'm using the back sides of my template things here, so I don't know what I have anymore. Well, let's just use this one. Hold on a second. I gotta get out of here. You can see what I'm doing. So basically, if you look at the v-chisel, if you look closely at your v-chisel, you get a angle down there, and then there's a slight radius at the bottom. Okay, that is almost invisible, basically imperceptible of that tiny little corner radius. But there is one, because if this were really sharp on the inside, it would kind of catch the wood. So they actually do that on purpose. And so if you imagine basically like that. And so go back to what I was just showing you, flat chisel. And then if you remove quite a bit of metal, then what happens is you actually get a sharp corner on the outside, which ends up, if you've ever done this before, it ends up having this little beak of metal sticking out right at the corner. And it's really annoying because if you ever try carving, when you still have this little beak of metal, it'll just snag and tear the wood. So the trick is you got flat chisel, and then you sharpen the outer edge, this whole edge from there all the way back, as if it was a tiny little curved gouge. Okay, and so if you don't do that, you're still going to be dealing with it. You won't be able to get the outside edge or outside curve corner to match the inside. Okay, and that usually is the trickiest part. Because at that point, it's really tempting just to sort of tip the tool up and just take that little beak off. Or you take, I've seen people take the against the stone like that, and just get rid of the beak. And that really doesn't solve the issue either. But just sharpen it as if it's a tiny little gouge. Okay, so let's go back. Where's the v-chisel? All right, so just like that. And just take that, and you can actually see that little point of metal slowly getting shorter and shorter as you create that outside curve. Okay, so the goal is pretty much going straight across and smooth along the corner and then straight across. So I didn't bring it here, but and I will bring this with me. I've got one of those really close eye loop things. And it's amazing what information it will tell you. Things that you never thought you needed to know. But if you're dealing with like a corner that just simply will not get sharp, and you're just trying to figure out what is going on with it, that helps. And I'll be bringing that too. So now the next step, after you get the little wire edge and you've dealt with that little beak, this is where you move to the fine grit stone, the 8000, and then you want to use a slip stone, right? This is a larger one, right? You can see that that's got a curve there and it's got a corner there, all right? So it fits v-chisels and curved gouges. Here's a tinier one. So you want to make sure that the angle of the stone is actually fits pretty close. This is where I was saying you get different angled gouges, like a 45-degree angle gouge, and it's really hard to get a stone to fit fully inside there. It's a very tight angle. And so what I tend to do is I go like this, hold it with my finger, and basically so I'm looking down at it to see that there's no shadow, right? So if this way I can really identify whether it is actually reaching the blade or not, right? If you just sort of randomly go, not paying any attention, it's probably not going to get rid of that wire edge, right? So you really focus on one side into the V and then focus on the other side. And you should, the first time through, you should be able to feel a little wire edge on the back side. Just run your hand that way, not the other way. Okay, so then what you do then is you basically go back on the stone, the 8000, flat chisel, curved gouge, and you just go back and forth between using the stone, same process that we did before, and then using this. This one is actually an Arkansas stone, and they usually are the slip stones, right? And then just go right inside, right? So, maybe 5-10 times back and forth, and that little wire edge should come off. And then what I have for the leather strap, I've got this, which is really kind of neat. I just bought this. It's actually a Power Strap brand, but I think it's got two huge, really, really thick pieces of leather, and it's nice and sturdy. And basically what I do is I use this, all right, and drag it back. Now you could end up taking, and I don't have it with me, but basically take an angled piece of wood, put a little leather on it, or just leave the wood blank, but basically take an angled piece of wood and then just put the polishing or jeweler's rouge or polishing compound on it and just drag it back across that, because you really want to have the whole surface of the V touching that strap. And I say leather strap, but it doesn't actually have to be leather. You can use cardboard, but typically it is leather. Okay, so flat, drag back straight, and then the corner. Right. That is pretty much, that should shave hair at that point. There any questions with that? I know it was kind of sped through pretty quickly. Olivia, do you have anything to contribute with
Good
that?
job.
Thanks. How many of you have actually tried sharpening a v-chisel?
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times. Did you?
I have trouble with my very, very thin ones.
Yeah.
I've got a series of flex tool ones that I use on some miniature carvings, and they're the ones I have the most trouble with.
Well, what you could also do, and I don't know what you use, Olivia, for the really tight ones, but you can use really, really fine sandpaper, like 6,000 grit sandpaper, and just fold it, and use that. What do you use, Olivia, for the?
I haven't been, because they've been so small, I haven't been doing the inside. I hadn't thought of using some fine grit paper. That's a great idea. That should make a big difference. I might be able to carve the beard on my little imp now because it's very thin wood and very fragile. And yeah, I broke it off the last time I tried to carve it.
Okay. Flex cut also make a profile of all the shapes they do in timber that you can just put stropping compound on that.
And is that so chopping compound, and that's actually removes the wire edge?
Yes.
And that's what I use, yeah. I aim to strop and never really sharpen that much.
I've taken that on board.
Lovely.
I tend to do that a little bit with or mostly with my chisels as well, because the more you strop, the less hard work there is for unless you drop a chisel, which is always a horrendous thing. But I also have a little set of file palm chisels that I use for my lino work. I do printmaking as well. And the one I found the hardest to sharpen properly is I have a tiny, tiny, tiny number 11. I've got two actually. I've got a 0.5 millimeter and a 1 millimeter. The 1 millimeter I can do okay, and the 0.5 I still struggle with because it's just so tiny. Getting to the inside without taking the corners off is really hard. So I might give it a go with. I'll see if I can find some really, really fine sandpaper, around 6,000 or something, but the paper itself to be really thin too.
Yes.
Probably wet and dry would be better on that instead of actual sandpaper.
Sorry, what was that?
Wet and dry, because you can get like.
The grey sandpaper.
Go to an automotive store.
Yeah.
They usually go up to possibly 6,000, maybe more. And I'm assuming you've got woodworking stores, which they might be able to provide that. But so what you can do is basically fold it, all right, and then you might have to put something like a putty knife or something sturdy behind it, because the paper itself will kind of get floppy unless you can find some really sturdy paper. Okay, then you start looking at, well, wait a minute, if there's a putty knife in behind it, then it's gonna be too thick. We're talking about 0.5 millimeters. But so you may have to just resort to just folding it and just using that. Because if you're chopping it and actually using just on the leather would be challenging, because again, into that. I always tell people if they drop their 0.5 millimeter veiner on the floor, it's time to go shopping.
Yeah, I would do that if I dropped it. That's one of the ones that I make sure I do not drop. Thank you.
No, good ideas. So
you use a Japanese saw blade for that backing too, because say what's a fine Dozuki is probably 0.4 of a mil. So fold the paper around rather than a knife. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so we've been at this for an hour and 23 minutes, and I think we should wrap it up. Just like Mary and Olivia charge me like by the hour, and like, well,
Okay.
I'm gonna
I'm joking.
hold you to that, John.
Sorry.
Said I'm
What's
gonna
that?
hold you for that now. You've said it publicly.
Great. Yeah. What about the 30-hour flight over there?
You came willingly. Yeah.
We've got witnesses.
We're going to look after you, Mary. Don't worry. It's
I
going to be
agree,
good.
Will.
Yeah. You
Flights
like.
count for double time.
Does everybody have, is everybody okay if, I don't know if we're going to do this again, is put this up on my YouTube channel? So for
Yeah,
people
that's
to watch
fine.
it if
Yeah,
they
been watching you carve Lady Jane.
You watched that?
I have been. I'm still watching. I'm up to 16, episode 16.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that was a COVID project that
I figured.
yeah, that was fun. That was fun to do though.
It was very interesting to watch it emerge.
Yeah. That was
Well,
fun.
thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mary, and Olivia, and the rest of the participants. I've got a bit of information out of everybody, including those that are participating. Sorry, I'm not doing the workshop, but I will be down there for a couple of days, so I might see you both while I'm there. Traveling around in the evening or something like that.
Well, on the Thursday evening, let me do my math. What's that? The 13th or the 14th? We're having an in-house event at the studio where you'll be able to come in and see the work that's been done in the class, and then stay back, and we can have like a little drinky poo or a kombucha, depending on what you like. And is that how you pronounce it, Olivia? Kombucha?
That's right, John.
Yeah.
And then Mary will do a little slideshow, and we'll have a talk with a few demos.
Unfortunately, I'll be heading off on Thursday morning, so I'm going to miss that.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, I might see some of you, traveling around earlier in the week. But thank you very much for a great session today. I really enjoyed it and learned something from all the participants. So it's been great. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Simone.
Very good.
Okay, so any final questions so we can move on with our days?
No, I mean, whoops. The workshops, I'm coming to the workshop, so I'm looking forward to all of that. I'm looking forward to developing my skills there under both Olivia and Mary.
Awesome.
Well,
It'd be lovely to see you.
Looking forward to it. Really am. I actually spent a year in Australia back when I was like 20 years old, and had way too much fun. This time's going to be a little different. It's not going to be at the pub every evening. So I don't know. It will.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
I don't know. Where do we meet after the class?
We're in Coburg, which is the north side, so the edge of the inner city. So there's plenty of options. Yeah. So we have Sydney Road, which is just near here, which has got everything you can imagine, ethnically, food-wise, whatever. It's a very complex place, but
very diverse.
I love Melbourne.
Well, looking forward to it. We'll see everybody then in how many weeks now? Almost.
About a bit.
3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, approximately, 2.5.
2.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank
If
you.
you've got any questions, feel free to email me and I can pass them on. Scott, if you need any more help, let me know. Hopefully we'll see you there. I love that computer you got behind you. I don't know if that little iMac.
That one.
Two
That
Macs.
one.
Look at that. Oh, I love the pedal. I had both those models in the day. Yeah. Does it still work?
Yeah, they do.
Wow, interesting. I wish I had the pedestal one. I wish I'd never got rid of it. Anyway, thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day. Yeah.
You too.
All right. See you later.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.